Action!
Congratulations on the new record. So my understanding is that the title, K-Bay, kind of corresponds to your studio. Is that right?
Yeah, it's the name of my home studio. I think it's more importantly just sort of represents a kind of a cordoned off space for myself. I don't know how much you know about my background, but
a bit.
I've had like the first record started off and kind of launched myself as well as a record label, Spacebomb, and over the years it's been really good. Everything's been really good, but I've had to be a little bit more aggressive with grabbing space and time for myself.
Possibly a little too popular and kind of outgrew it.
Well, it's just as a solo artist, no one's as a solo anything. I think no one's giving you time. Everyone's just asking for your time. You don't have anyone else to sort of like advocate for personal space and personal time. So you sort of have to be pretty aggressive about that. And definitely sort of in the creative sphere, like it was necessary for me to just have a physical space as well as sort of a mental and spiritual space that was my own. Away from Spacebomb. And so K-Bay is a physical space, but it's also sort of kind of representative of
where you're
attachment.
At. It's a place to retreat to. So did you make a lot of the record kind of isolated, or were you
working? No, not at all. Actually, I made the record in a studio called Montrose in Richmond, and it was in a few different phases. There was 2 weeks it was one band, 2 weeks it was another band, and then a lot of orchestral stuff at a certain point, arrangements, and then a lot of kind of just a sort of a long string of overdubs with individual musicians and working on stuff with just myself and the engineer. So the backbone of the record is definitely still like house band based. It's about a band performing in a room and getting those takes and sort of digging into that style of production, and then the rest is kind of dealing with that material and adding different sort of accoutrement around it.
Now, before we get into the guts of the record, I noticed on your website, it kind of opens up with a diagram of all these influences, everything from like Carole King and Rocksteady and the Stones and Sly and free jazz and all that. And one that caught my eye was doo-wop, because I'm a kind of a doo-wop fan. And I was like, oh, I wonder what kind of doo-wop he's into. And then I saw on your YouTube channel, you have the Flamingos, I Only Have Eyes for You.
Yeah.
Which, for my own personal opinion, is probably one of the best produced records ever made.
Amazing.
Are the stars out tonight? I don't know if it's cloudy or bright. I only have eyes for you.
It's amazing. That particular track is like, it's magic. It's absolutely, it's just unbelievable. It's like from back in those days when there's so much, there's so much less, like the technology allowed you to be so less particular. So there's just so much more bleed, and so much. It's very difficult to make. The only way to make records like that is when you're making them with a couple mics and you're just adding such a higher degree of the chance element, and you just get this soupy kind of, and I don't mean that it's loose or anything. I just mean this unrepeatable like sonic quality to the recordings but that one in particular, it's struck by lightning.
Heavenly. It just sounds like it was made in heaven.
Unbelievable.
So as a producer, do you think about that when you're making your records for yourself or with other folks?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a few basic concepts to that I try to pull out. One is making decisions really early. I try very hard to commit to as many decisions as possible as early in the process as I can.
Right.
Some of that has to do with limited miking and just recording to tape machine, which is partly about the sonic quality of the tape machine, but it's equally about forcing you to commit to sounds and stuff early on. And both of those things really, I think, eliminate variables, which becomes a compounding problem.
I mean, let's face it, the way technology is, you can pretty much do anything, and it's unlimited. So to limit yourself, kind of something to work with.
And I also just think I just sort of think the concept of bleed is really important. I mean, it's sort of elementary, but I think just always being okay with other sound sources being involved in other sound sources and that kind of thing. I mean, just kind of giving the green light to any of those situations, recording without headphones a lot and having speakers in the room and just things like that just sort of add texture, add these tiny layers of texture that over time, if you do that with a lot of your overdubs and things like that, it just sort of, there's like a film, that sort of develops over the music, which I really like. Is really, some people don't like that, but to me, that's a really attractive sort of sound, just try to get it greasy.
Yeah. And speaking of film, you've done several videos, especially for the first 3 tracks, that kind of tell a little story or kind of link them all together. And so tell me about how do you go about visualizing the music?
I always like the desert, baby. I need the wilderness. I'm hanging tough. There's no doubt about that. I'm always swinging.
How involved are you? Because I know you have you have people working with you on that.
Well, with these, in the past, I haven't been that involved. It's sort of you're dealing with a third party production team and stuff like that. With these, I was a lot more hands on because I just got tired of doing it that other way, and I just didn't really like the results. So, the first 2 videos that came out, or 2 of the videos that came out, are basically it's studio footage. Which is is an easy one, but it's also just really nice. We had a really great filmographer, kind of capture a lot that we were doing, and this gives you a picture into the players and the team and where we're at and kind of the spiritual energy of it. And then there's a couple more videos that are kind of a little more goofy, and they're just my concepts of different things. We just had fun, just made them all in Richmond, made them all with people that I knew. Made all the actors and stuff are people that, people that I know, and just trying to keep it a little bit more close knit, a little more community oriented. But I don't really visualize. All that to say to your question, I don't have
vision,
visual elements going on when I'm making the tunes, and it's a constant frustration that I'm sort of asked to pair visuals with music because it's definitely not. They don't go together in my mind.
Right. So this is your first quote unquote solo album in a little while, but you've been busy doing other things. Yeah. The most recent collaboration with Lonnie Holley. So I'm just curious how they relate to each other, if they do at all.
Here I am with some on my mind.
Yeah, well, they do actually a lot. All the music on Lonnie Holley is just on the Lonnie Holley record is just extra music from K-Bay.
Okay.
I did this thing where I recorded basically more traditional versions of the songs, and by traditional I mean in a very broad sense, drums, bass, vocals. A song, what we would think of as a song. And then I did very sort of esoteric, opaque, more or less free jazz or very loosely composed versions of the songs that are were organized around different pillars of how the songs worked so that they would be compatible, kind of to create a sample library for myself to sort of cut back and forth between the two, which I did, but I ended up with just a tremendous amount of really powerful and really strong improvised material that was just left over from that concept, and I just cut it together, modeled a little bit after Tio Macero's work with Miles Davis and the Electric Model period, and then asked Lonnie to sing on it. So I mean, ideally, I thought about releasing Lonnie's record and calling it K-Bay 2,
right,
as the first record, and then releasing this one. I mean, they really should be packaged and sold together. To me, they are the same thing, basically.
Gotcha. That answers that question.
it's the same music. It's just another. And I don't mean to downplay Lonnie's collaborative effort, but all of the musical parts of that record were there. He just sang on it, which is in his tremendous improvisational work.
Yeah.
But in terms of a musical and production point, like I see them as brother sister records. If it was a 4-disc LP that just had that attached to it, I would be completely fine with that. They're the same to me.
Well, probably release that next year. Big box set.
Well, yeah, that'd be amazing. Yeah, that'd be really sick. There's actually some of those Lonnie records that you could put on top of some of the ones on K-Bay because they fit exactly. I know that they fit exactly. Yeah, and it's sort of Pink Floyd, Wizard of Oz style. Right.
Well, you mentioned Miles Davis, and I know you have a jazz background, and that kind of seeps into what you're doing here, especially on a track called "Take Your Time and Find That Orange to Squeeze," which has all sorts of things going on. And I was hoping you might just touch on that track. A little insight.
Yeah, that track's an adventure. I mean, it's kind of starts out with I think of it as sort of like a 70s BBC nature documentary intro. It's sort of like atonal classical music with some synthesizers, like program synthesizers involved, and a lot of tape manipulation that kind of brings us into the beginning of the track, which is like more almost like a modern R&B intro like track, and then it makes its way from there. The definitely the chord changes are more jazz influenced chord changes, and then that sort of brings us to this really big chorus. It's very kind of classic Philly soul, like big string riff, horns, big harmonized chorus. And I don't know.
There's some nice piano on it, I will say. Is that
and then there's the piano solo after the first chorus. Yeah. That was the first song I wrote. I wrote that hook on. There was like a day that I started writing the record. I'd done all this production work, and I was sort of like bugging my management to be like, I got to start writing this record because I had all this production stuff, and it's just hard to say no to that because it's such consistent and pretty good income, and like so I was like, finally I was like, okay, I gotta start recording. So there was just like a Monday where it was like, okay, I'm gonna start writing this record, and I wrote that hook, the hook on that chorus on the very first day of writing the record, and that chord progression too, which is pretty nifty, and that was nice. It was a nice kickoff to the whole writing. It took me a long time to finish that song because I thought that was going to be the verse for a long time. I thought the pre-chorus was going to be the chorus, but anyway, worked it out. But
it's interesting you mentioned the fact that you kind of had to make time to take away from your production work to make your own record. And your production work obviously is how you earn your living, probably. Whereas I don't expect anybody's getting rich off of making records these days.
Well, yeah, no one's getting. Well, I'm not getting rich off of either of them. But
well, no, I wasn't inferring that. But I mean, let's face it, Spotify isn't paying anybody anything.
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, it's not. It's not. I mean, for me, it is actually lit. Well, it's literally 50-50 right now.
Yeah.
Spotify doesn't. I'm sort of. There's some pros and cons to Spotify. I think. I stream pretty well, and Spotify doesn't pay me a lot, but it definitely pays me something.
Oh, that's
it's
good.
pretty consistent.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, production definitely is something, especially because it's not as if I take production. The difficulty for me, and this is pretty nuanced, but I don't necessarily take production work just for myself. It's a wing of Spacebomb's business.
Right.
So if I don't take the production work, I'm sort of shortchanging my business partners.
Gotcha.
By not taking the work. So if it were just up to me, I would actually probably take a lot less production work just in general, because I could make more records and I like doing that. But I have friends and business partners that sort of rely on me taking jobs to kind of keep the wheels going. And so that's a little more complicated than me just saying yes or no to jobs.
Yeah. And what do you base saying yes or no to jobs on, other than is it a musical decision or a financial decision?
It's financial decision.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Now, you talk a lot about your music. Oh, sorry. Carry on.
No, I just said I'm for hire. All right.
Hire. So we talk a lot about music, but your lyrics, you have a tune called "Fell Like an Axe," which kind of addresses. It seems like climate change, or there's something about the sea is the color of lead and the sky is the color of smoke. So do you feel your lyrics kind of get overlooked because of the attention given to your production skills?
Long spears of silence, public space, electric lane. We leave it on the coast of Alabama, ocean and leather, violent name. The sea is the color of lead, and the sky the color of smoke.
Yeah, well, I think they get overlooked because, yes, I do think that a little bit. I mean, I don't go out of my way to, my music's pretty dense, especially on this record. It's pretty dense. So it's not like I'm pointing to them with every arrow.
Right.
And I could be better about that. But to me, that's not really what it's about. It's about how they match up and how they work together. So yeah, I mean, in broad strokes, I think the answer to that question is yes. I mean, the amount I spend about talking about my lyrics, amount of time I spend talking about my lyrics in interviews is like not that much, but I do spend a lot of, but that being said, I spend a lot of time on the lyrics, and I would kind of put them toe to toe with peers of mine. I think they're pretty good. I just, that's not usually what I'm talking about. But that's also understandable too. Yeah. I also, it's harder for me. Like I'm less confident. I'm confident them at the end, but it just takes me a lot longer. It's not production. I could just sort of show up at work and do that solid job at that, but I can't just crank out a song.
Right.
Like it can be pretty shitty unless I work pretty hard at it.
Yeah. Did you work pretty hard on Only in America? I'm guessing I thought so. And that's kind of stands out apart from the others.
Yeah.
Did you think a lot about including that in the record?
We've set aside all that's right, and we've left behind us in the darkest night all those folks we didn't want next to us or near to us, cruising on our avenue. We're like it me, the cowboy scene, and in the wind, the American dream, singing sweetly across the South, blood on its hands and blood on its mouth. We like it rough and we like it tough, and if it's blood we owe, then Jesus gave enough for all the men and women and children we bled out. In God we trust, there ain't no doubt.
Yeah, I didn't. It was kind of a late ad, not because it was a late song. I've been working on that song since Ferguson, so that was 2014.
Oh yeah.
Just I wrote a lot of songs that were in that spirit, just because I think about that stuff a lot, and
Yep.
I'm in Richmond, where it's very that sort of tenor is around, very close at hand.
Yep.
But it's just, for me, it has to work from a musical point of view. Like, it just has to work. Everything has to work. Everyone knows how I feel about it. You can look on Instagram and find that out. But for it to be put on a record, it just has to work as a song, and just kind of like chipped away at that one for a long time. Part of it's, part musically and lyrically, and then just how it all kind of works together. And that's sort of like a suite almost. And yeah, I mean, and just watching out for blind spots, because it's definitely something that, a person like myself is prone to. And I don't know, just trying to be really careful. And, definitely, like, writing a song about white privilege or police brutality and stuff like that. It's like, you have to be, you just want to make sure your lyrics are clear. There's not as much room for a reinterpretation. When you're writing about romantic things or life things, a lot of times the lyrics, people assign their own meanings and assign
a little more ambiguous, because
it can be ambiguous, and you can allow people to assign meanings and stuff like that. But when you're writing a song like Only in America, you can't really let that be the case. It has to be.
Yeah, you don't want anybody to get the wrong idea.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want anybody to get the wrong idea. Exactly. It has to be pretty precise. So just a little bit of a different kind of writing. But yeah, so
and you addressed the concept of the American dream in that song, which I'm an American. I moved here, but I mean, I'm older. I grew up with that concept, and as you probably did too. Is that changing finally, do you think?
You mean the concept of what it is, or the realization that it's not real for people?
Possibly both.
Well, I think that's the main thing, is that it's just not available to everyone. Yeah. I think that's a fundamental. It's a fundamental truth that we don't have a history of teaching ourselves. Yeah. And I think that's sort of a primary thing that needs to change, is just the realization that it's not, everyone doesn't have the same access, everyone doesn't have the same opportunity. Yeah. And some people's access and opportunity actually precludes them from a significant amount of what we think of as the American dream. Is just not available. And so that's pretty simple. It's not a super complex concept. It's just, I think, maybe it's becoming more and more clear. I don't know. I grew up in a pretty conservative background, where and I see it changing a little bit, like with my family and sort of the culture that I grew up in, but it's a long way to go.
Yeah.
I'm not particularly bathed in positivity about it.
Okay. Well, hopefully bringing it more positive. There seems to be a recurring character in the album, somebody named Judy, which from my research is referring possibly to your wife. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's my wife. Her name's Mary, but Mary doesn't have quite the same ring to it. Doesn't sing quite as well.
Rain is the sky's truest instinct. Sunrise is dawn's monument. Coolness is the shadow's tradition. Used to steal is opulence. Come on with the Duda. We all got something to find. Come on with the precious, if we're taking time for messing around. I think we're doing all right.
There's a certain style to the name Judy that I really liked. And I was really inspired by John Lennon, the way he sort of sings Yoko's name very casually over the course of
Yoko. Oh.
Yeah, it's like in a bunch of different songs in a bunch of different ways. And I just think it really reflects a kind of domesticity that's really like powerful, and it's very difficult to write about a committed domestic monogamous relationship in a sexy way, and sometimes. And I think that there's just something about, but at the same time, it's such an elusive, like powerful concept and experience. And I think that for me, it's just a simple thing. It was just repeating the same name. It's just using the same name and just saying, hey, all this is about the same person, and the experiences are the same person. And it wasn't, just nothing more than that. Just it felt casual, but that's kind of the beauty of it in a way,
right?
Is that it's casual.
So do you pay attention to the reactions, reviews? The record's been out a little while.
Yeah, I pay attention.
Yeah. Do people get it, do you think, or do you sit there and go, no?
Well, it's a little, there's a bunch of different style of reviews. It's like people that really get it, truly get it.
Yeah.
And that's nice. I get a fair amount of that. And then you get people that don't really, they're just like really don't get it, like really don't get it. And then you have kind of people that are on assignment, and they're just kind of writing a review because they were assigned the review, and they generally like it, but they don't really know why they like it.
Right.
And then you kind of get the opposite of that. You get people that are on assignment and they generally don't like it, but they don't really know why. And most of my reviews are positive, I'd say. I mean, but this record in particular is pretty dense, and it definitely asks a lot of the listener. It's not always kind in that way. It's not always hospitable. And so it's a little, I see it's a little more polarizing. Like I get people that are, it seems like really like sort of culty excited about it, that are just like, wow, like they really, really get it, and it's like, I'm talking about like experimental classical music with people and like all this outside stuff. And it's like, yeah, this is great. I talked about Edgar Varese on an interview the other day. I was like, yes, this is fucking fantastic. But like, but then, it's like, you have people that just don't, that occasionally just don't get it. On my Instagram, I do this series where I review the reviews.
Oh, right. Do you? Okay.
I just put them up and I just talk about them. It's pretty funny. I have a good time with it. But yeah, it's like, it's okay. But reviewing records is funny. People, there's so many reviews that like they get through the first, it'll be like a 500 or 700 word review or something, and they'll get through the first 500 words. And then it's just obvious that they just get tired of writing,
Yeah.
It's like, all right, they just wrap it up, it's like, a lot of times it's not the best. I mean, no offense, definitely, I don't mean this any sort of offense to you, but like a lot of times there's not the best writing, the writers in the world, and it's sloppy. It's pretty sloppy outlet in like sort of a sloppy river of the music industry. It's not like, and the misinformation is like, it's crazy. That's one of the things I do on my Instagram account. It's just like correcting people's facts.
Right.
Because so many people just get stuff wrong.
So what kind of stuff do they get wrong?
Like on this one, they'll be like, I recorded the whole thing alone at K-Bay.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is like, that's not true. There's nothing that says that anywhere. That's like no one has said that, that's just you start kind of breezing a press release. It's obviously you breathing a press release. That's kind of a common one they get wrong. I mean, kind of infamously on the first Pitchfork, this is going back a while, but this came to mind, like the Pitchfork review of Beginner, there's a session player named David Hood who plays saxophone, and I use him sometimes. David Hood is also the bass player in the Stax band.
Yes, Muscle Shoals, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Muscle Shoals band. And so in the first Pitchfork review, they just talked about how Muscle Shoals David Hood played bass on my record. And it's just like, dude, where the fuck did you get that from? That's like not anywhere. Man. It's nowhere. It's just in the metadata. It says David Hood, alto saxophone. It's like, just stuff like that. Just weird. It comes out of nowhere sometimes. It's just like, where this, another thing that's really, really bums me out, since we're talking about this, and I
let it out.
I spent all day Instagramming about it, is when people project like their own influences onto me. So I don't mind if someone says, "Oh, this song sounds like this."
Yeah.
Because no one's listened to everything.
Right.
And it's like, what if it sounds like that to you, then that's cool. It sounds like that to you. You know, it is a personal review. But when people say he was channeling this,
gotcha.
And it's like, I've never, like this guy today was like, Matt channels John Grant. It's like, dude, I've never fucking listened to John Grant in my life.
It's hard to channel somebody if you've never heard.
I've never listened to 1 minute of that. Like, and if you're reviewing it based on thinking that I am trying to do this thing that you're projecting onto me, that's really lazy. And that happens quite a bit. Especially, it's like if you didn't talk to me, like if the reviewer didn't request an interview, I do pretty much every single thing that's requested. So it's if I know that you didn't request an interview for your review and you're putting things in my mouth, it's kind of like, you know, fuck off. I'm not appreciative of that.
Yeah, it's amazing how accessible everyone is these days. I know. I'm sitting here talking to you.
I'll do anything. I talk to anyone, basically anyone, as far as I know. I mean, I don't actually take in the requests, so maybe they're getting
right. It could be.
As far as I know, I do everything that they ask me to do.
And do you enjoy it?
Yeah, I like talking to people. I mean, mostly. So occasionally you'll get a bad apple, and
yeah,
I don't like that. But they know it. I'm pretty. At this point, I've just been doing it so much. It's just get pretty chippy with people if they don't. You know, like people that come to interviews and I can tell that they haven't listened to the record, or they ask me questions that like, dude, this is common knowledge. Like, this is
why are you wasting my time?
Yeah, kind of, you know, I mean, not that everything, I mean, I know that, you know, everyone's going to write 500 words or whatever, and it's like everyone has to cover the same bases. That's cool, but you know, just some stuff is just like out there. It's like, come on, don't ask me that.
Fair enough. So what are you working on next? Anything exciting?
Yeah, I'm working on a couple instrumental things. It was really hard for me to write songs during COVID. I actually had a baby during COVID. I mean, right at the beginning in March. Thank you. In March 2020. It's a really weird time to have a baby.
Well, but you know what? I've had a couple myself. Any time is weird.
Yeah, that's true. That's good. Yeah. So anyway, you know, that's been a lot of my life lately, but I had a thing kind of later in the pandemic where it was just meeting up with a couple of guys that I work with all the time, and just at K-Bay at the spot, and just was kind of working on instrumental music. I mean, we're all like instrumentalists,
right?
Like first, you know, I definitely was a guitar player before I was a songwriter, and was an arranger after I was a guitar player, and before I was a songwriter, you know, so it's like there was something really refreshing just about, I don't know, not worrying about words, but it's not like jams. It's like, it's like Booker T and the MG style or something. It's melodies and just instrumental music, you know. And
that's true. You never think of Booker T and the MGs as a jam band.
Yeah, definitely not. You know, it's like they play 3-minute songs. They have forms. They have melodies. They have verse melodies, chorus melodies, and I was really into that. You know, I was like, no, there's no soloing. There's no soloing. It's just form, melody, just like you would a song, but there's just no words. And that was really fun. Really put some nice restrictions on myself and some friends, and just made some pretty cool shit. Actually, I'm pretty excited about it.
Excellent.
I'm pretty excited about it. So I don't know when that'll see the light of day, but the record label seems pretty stoked. I mean, Dama's awesome, but they continue to be awesome when I show them instrumental music, and they're like, yeah, let's release this. It's like,
oh, cool. Hey, well, that's what you want. You don't want to
you never know. I mean,
fight all the time for your own. Yeah. And who knows, maybe you can get that double or quadruple 4 album set out next year of everything.
Yeah. We'll see. I don't know if there's a market for that, but
just put it on colored vinyl, it'll sell.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Of course.
All righty. Well, thank you very much for taking all this time talking to me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, likewise. I appreciate it.
Enjoy it immensely. Come down to New Zealand if you get a chance.
I'd love to.
Yeah.
Have a good day.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.